The American couple, Sarah and Mark, had just moved into their dream apartment on the 12th floor of a newly constructed luxury high-rise building. The view from their balcony was breathtaking, skyscrapers in the distance, the city lights twinkling like stars at night. But something about the emptiness of the neighboring balconies gave them an uneasy feeling. A week later, they noticed someone moving into the unit next door. Their balcony was so close that if either family left their curtains open, they could easily peer into each other's bedrooms. It felt invasive, but polite smiles were exchanged when they briefly met in the hallway. The neighbors, a man named Ethan and his wife Clara, seemed pleasant enough, though there was a coldness to their demeanor that Sarah couldn't quite place. That night, as Sarah lay in bed reading, she heard faint whispers coming from outside. She pulled back the curtain slightly and saw Ethan standing on his balcony, staring directly at her window. His face was pale, almost translucent under the moonlight. He didn't move or blink. He just stood there, watching. When she called out softly, asking if everything was okay, he disappeared without a sound. When Sarah told Mark what happened, he laughed it off. "You're imagining things," he said. "It's probably just jet lag or stress from the move." Still, Sarah couldn't shake the image of Ethan's hollow eyes staring into hers. That night, she made sure all the curtains were tightly drawn before going to sleep. On Friday evening, after a long day at work, Sarah decided to take a relaxing bath. As she soaked in the tub, she glanced up at the mirror above the sink. For a split second, she thought she saw a figure standing behind her, a woman with long black hair covering her face. Startled, she turned around, but no one was there. Shaking her head, she convinced herself it was just steam playing tricks on her mind. Saturday morning came, and the couple planned to spend the day exploring the city. However, when they stepped onto their balcony for some fresh air, they froze. On Ethan and Clara's balcony, a child's red balloon floated eerily, tied to the railing. Neither of them remembered seeing any children living in the building, or even visiting. Later that afternoon, Clara knocked on their door. Her smile was forced, her hands trembling as she held a plate of cookies. "Be careful not to leave your balcony door open at night," she warned cryptically. "Sometimes, things wander through." Before they could ask what she meant, she hurried away, leaving the couple confused and unsettled. That night, unable to sleep, Sarah heard the whispers again. This time, they were louder, clearer. They seemed to come from the balcony. Against her better judgment, she crept closer and peeked through the gap in the curtains. To her horror, she saw shadows moving across Ethan and Clara's bedroom, shadows of people who weren't there. One shadow appeared to be a small child, clutching a red balloon. Finally, Mark witnessed something strange himself. While brushing his teeth late at night, he caught sight of Ethan standing motionless on his own balcony. What terrified him most was that Ethan wasn't alone. He was holding hands with the shadowy figure of a little girl, who turned her head slowly toward Mark and smiled. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah began researching the history of the building. She discovered that the land where the high-rise now stood had once been a playground decades ago. Tragically, a young girl had fallen to her death from the top of a slide during a storm. Locals claimed her spirit haunted the area ever since. One evening, Ethan invited them over for dinner. The atmosphere in their apartment was suffocating, the air thick with silence. Halfway through the meal, Clara suddenly asked, "Do you hear that?" Without waiting for an answer, she rushed to the balcony and screamed. When Sarah and Mark followed, they saw nothing, but the red balloon was gone. Days passed, and the sightings grew more frequent. Shadows loomed larger, whispers turned into cries, and the temperature in their apartment dropped inexplicably. Then, one fateful night, Sarah woke up to find Mark missing. Panicked, she searched the entire apartment until she reached the balcony. There she found him standing frozen, gazing at Ethan and Clara's unit. But this time, instead of seeing their neighbors, she saw only darkness. and 2 lifeless bodies hanging from the ceiling inside their apartment. Beneath them, scrawled in blood on the glass door, were the words, "Welcome to your new home." In a chilling twist, Sarah realized too late that Ethan and Clara weren't real. They were ghosts themselves, luring unsuspecting tenants into their cursed space. As she backed away from the balcony, she heard laughter behind her. Turning slowly, she saw Mark smiling eerily, his eyes completely black. "We've been waiting for you," he whispered. The building remained half empty, its reputation tarnished by unexplained disappearances. Those brave enough to live there often reported hearing children laughing and seeing red balloons floating between the floors. And on quiet nights, if you stand on the 12th floor balcony, you might catch a glimpse of Sarah and Mark, staring blankly into the void, forever trapped in their nightmare.